Hi, everybody. I'm just recording this preface to this whole interview because this interview was recorded a while back and I had released it initially, but I wanted to re release it with a new preface, meaning before the intro. Oh, yeah. Because it's been a few weeks since we recorded this, so this is a fun escape episode. I get to talk to this really awesome comedian where we talk about everything that's not currently in our minds right now. Meaning, this was a chat that we had before all the exciting stuff that's happening with Black Lives Matter right now. And it's been, a whirlwind month? Less than a month or so, I guess, since the killing of George Floyd, which then set off such an exciting, I guess, swell of movement. Of course, not the tragedy itself, not exciting. Terrible that had to happen for people to actually pay attention. But here we are, Here we are. And so obviously it's been kind of priority for me to follow along with all the movement and figure out how best I can help and learn and donate and all those things. So I just hadn't prioritized this podcast. But look, I know this is really important to my mental health that I continue to do this podcast and hopefully to yours as well. No, I just hope it does give a little bit of, something to listen to. So I am going to really try to, bring it back to the forefront of my mind. But naturally, we've all been doing other things, and I think that is important too. Something I wanted to pitch as something just that I've been really looking into recently is prison industrial complex stuff. So learning about what that means. Currently reading the new Jim Crow, which is I'm sure probably on so many people's reading lists, but yeah, just it talks about what is the prison industrial complex among many other things. And some of you know me know that I had, kind of have had an interest in this particular portion of the movement. And, if you guys are interested in following along, pick up that book, talk to me about it, DM me, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And I plan to do a lot more in that area and the best I can. What does that mean? Donating, spreading awareness, posting, I don't know, right? We're all figuring it out together. And my heart goes out to you guys if you're struggling through this period. If you're like, oh my God, it is very, very overwhelming, everything we're learning. And I don't know what thing to turn to and this and that. And Sierra, why are you talking about it? Because I'm just here to listen and escape. And I'm like, hey, you're totally right. And you will do that very soon. Because this entire interview doesn't talk about that because it hadn't happened yet necessarily. But little did we know the prison industrial complex was alive and well throughout. This is stuff that this is all fun stuff. But on top of all that, there have been a couple other big things that have happened as well that I will not comment on right now, but I am going to tell you that I have many thoughts on it and I want to release a separate podcast about it, whether that'll be interviewing someone where we talk about this topic or I'll just be talking about it myself into this little ball, which is my microphone soundproofing thing. I don't know. But in the comedy community, we also had something happen recently, which is sort of related to the Me Too movement in the sense that a pretty prominent comedian by the name of Chris D'Elia has been outed that he has pursued a lot of underage girls. And I laugh because it's ridiculously terrifying and horrifying. But I think it really raised the conversation within the comedy community of pedophiles. Why are they so prominent within entertainment and the comedy community? A lot of my friends who are also female comedians are coming forward talking about their experiences of this happening, of feeling marginalized because of all that as well. It's a boys' club. It's a men-dominated business, and I think that's something, like many things in our lives, I have grown to accept and be, silent about, but in reality, it is also something that's really affected how I pursued comedy. So I would love to talk about that, but probably not on this podcast because I like to gather my thoughts. But just letting you know, I'm aware of all these things that are happening out there, and I would love to start the dialogue on them a little bit more too. All right, well, enough of that. That was a real serious preface to this really funny and lighthearted podcast. So I'm just going to let you guys dive right in, and I hope you have a wonderful week. Hey everyone, welcome back to Stay Positive. So excited to have another episode for you guys today. Full disclosure, I just woke up from probably a 2.5 hour nap, and I know you're not supposed to nap for more than 20 minutes, but listen, sometimes it's too hard to resist. I was tired, and there's nothing quite like falling asleep when it's still bright outside and waking up in the nighttime. So that's a fun little quarantine hack that I'll share with you all today. I'm very excited about this guest as well. We have a fun, very, very cool, energized guest today. I know this guest because he's a hilarious stand-up comedian. He's a comic that I've looked up to for a while now. He's let me open for his shows because he's a headliner, and you've probably seen his comedy clips online because they're huge. He has an hour special called Surrender to the Blender. He's got so many things out there that I think if you're not tuned into this guy yet, you will be, and his energy is contagious. He's just always been a bright spot of light, and I think, just one of those perfect guests for a podcast like this. So, and I should address that I'm wearing a fire jacket right now. I purchased this bad boy recently, came in the mail. If you're just listening to the audio, you're missing out on some flames, which are on my jacket. So we talk about it in the podcast, and don't be surprised when it comes up. I warned you. So please enjoy my talk with comedian Eric Schwartz. Before we get into this interview, I just want to give a shout out to today's episode sponsor. It's SaveTheChildren.org. Save the Children believes every child deserves a future. In the United States and around the world, we work every day to give children a healthy start in life, the opportunity to learn, and protection from harm. We deliver lasting results for millions of children, including those hardest to reach. We do whatever it takes for children, every day and in times of crisis, transforming their lives in the future we share. Right now, the coronavirus is the biggest global health crisis of our lifetime, and it threatens children in every way. COVID-19 has already left many children without caregivers, out of school, and exposed to violence and exploitation. Child poverty is also rising. But with your support, we can still help children in unsafe households and help support distance learning in the face of school closures. Here are just a few ways your support can make a difference. For only $5, you can buy a baby's first book. This provides comfort and an inspiring lifelong love for learning. Then for a little bit more, maybe $25, you can serve a nutritious breakfast and lunch to 5 out-of-school children in need. For more information, go to SaveTheChildren.org/SaveKids. Hi, Eric Schwartz. Thanks for doing the podcast.
Hey, Sierra. Thanks for having me.
Exciting.
This is cool. It definitely, this is my first podcast, Zoom podcast.
Really? I feel so honored. It's a big deal. Clearly, it's quite an operation.
For sure. We're just like, we were dealt these cards, and we were like, you know what? We're gonna play them.
Totally. And I feel like specifically, we did this Zoom show together, the comedy show. Irene and Andrew's comedy show, and I was so impressed with how you quickly adapted to the comedy over Zoom. You had a PowerPoint presentation, which I had not seen.
Really?
Everybody's just sort of telling their jokes now, which is totally fine. I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, maybe I'll, introduce a prop. That's as far as I've gotten as far as adapting to the new media. You came in strong with a whole PowerPoint presentation, which was great. So.
Oh, well, I'd like to say that I created that for the Zoom platform, but I actually have been doing multimedia shows in my live shows.
Right, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So it was a good switch for you.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? This is totally built for what I've been doing on my long shows, so might as well just... And that was actually, you saw the first time I ever tried it, so...
Oh, really?
Glad it worked.
For more context for the listeners out there, you have a great bit about fonts that then expands into actual, you can see the fonts on the PowerPoint presentation, which is really helpful because, I want a visualization. If we're going to talk about Comic Sans, what's better than actually showing font in Comic Sans,
Exactly.
So it was
there are a few people out there. There are a few people out there that know what Comic Sans looks like, but they don't know that it's called Comic Sans.
Oh,
so
sure.
you gotta make it super clear for those people,
Yeah, and they get that delivered clearly. But yeah, and then I also realized too, when we were doing the show, it's the reason, so I do this podcast, which is, I said it's pretty casual, but there's sort of the underlying positivity factor. And I feel like I hadn't had such like an energetic comic. Like I hadn't watched like an energizing comedian on Zoom in a while, because I think we're all kind of like sitting down, it's a very different atmosphere. Even like Zooming with friends, it's kind of a little calmer, and we're all, going through this. And I felt like you really brought the energy, and I was like, oh yeah, of course, because it's Eric, but also it's good to see.
Thanks. You know what? Thanks for saying that, because I wonder if like if there's stuff to be desired. I know it's not. There's no way we can make it that sensory experience that an audience member is going to have at a live event. There's smell. There's the touch. I mean, the sense of touch, but it's not like nobody's touching you. But what's that? Like you feel the atmosphere of the room. And you feel people around you, and that makes you. Like they say, laughter is contagious, and especially if it's right there with you, it's gonna take you. You're gonna. If you're an audience member and there's a whole room full of people laughing, it would be hard for you to not laugh.
Totally, yeah. Just the peer pressure alone, you'd feel like, oh, am I crazy because I don't think this is funny. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely.
Why am I laughing? This is not funny.
I'm definitely guilty of like,
you're hypnotized.
Crowd laughing or whatever, mob mentality, but in a laughing way, not in a getting angry and carrying torches.
Right.
But yeah.
You bust.
I mean, did you ever do you miss it a lot? I mean, obviously we're all kind of going through adjusting, and it's cool we still get to do shows, but like, have you kind of felt that, missing the stage and being in those environments?
Of course, but it's like, every time I find myself, it's like there's two people inside of you, right? There's like I guess I want to say the baby or the brat who's like, I want to go in front of a live crowd.
Right.
This sucks, But then you got the other person, that has reason, and that says, you know what, it's not happening right now, so make the best of what you have. You have two choices, right? And which one is going to get you to the happy place quicker? And then, to me, that's the one of finding that new thing, where you can't do that thing that you were doing, so you got to get out of your comfort zone and find something new and exciting,
right?
Hopefully. Like maybe my multimedia was built for Zoom, and word starts spreading. Hey, you should see this multimedia. I call it multimedia. You should see this multimedia comedian, and I don't know. I mean, I'm saying that could potentially happen, and all the while, like if I fight it, then that will definitely not happen.
Yeah, that's a good way to guarantee things not to go your way.
What about you though? How do you because you said like you want to get back on stage, but are you like bumming over the current landscape, or are you like, whoa, is there like something that you found out of it that you're like, well, I couldn't really do that on
finding like that silver lining.
Show.
I mean, I feel like, what I'm enjoying about it is a lot of friends who have always said, oh, I want to come see your show when I'm in town, or people who are not, in Los Angeles, and I mainly perform in Los Angeles. Sometimes they get to see the show, which is fun, and they're able to see it. And I don't feel I don't know how you feel about these things, because you've obviously been doing this for a while and you headline. And so that's like really a good way to see a lot of cities and certain things. But sometimes I feel at this level that I'm at, I'm like worried if I have somebody come see a show, I don't know if it'll be good. And I don't want to make them like pay so much and park and stuff. So this is kind of a fun way for them, like, oh yeah, the commitment's very low. So at least if it doesn't go so well, you just had to like log into Zoom, That's an interesting way to look at it, because you look at it now, like maybe you get those people hooked on you that they didn't want to take that extra step for some reason, which is no fault of yours. Yeah, no 2-drink minimum. Like they can
you know what I mean?
See what they're going to buy later, right? So, you kind of introduce them in this low-cost situation. It's a good business model. It's a free trial of comedy.
Yeah, and then when the real world comes back, you're just going to be taking
all
money
that
out of
money
their
that everyone's
pockets,
going to have after this great crisis.
All that money, just throw in
Yeah,
their
yeah,
$1,200 check
that's what that's
your
for.
way.
Now I know. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, I think it is cool that you're able to look at it this way, and the multimedia has come in handy, which is great. But also just like from you as a comedian and like watching you perform, and also just like knowing that you've been headlining for a while, I always wonder like how people are dealing with adapting, not even just in this pandemic, but just like throughout the years, because like comedy's changed regardless of if there's a virus out there or not. And yeah, I don't know. I guess like I'm always wondering about how you've managed to adapt or like learn certain things. And it sounds like, you've just have a really great gift of having like an open mind and keeping, the possibilities open. But I don't know if you have any advice.
Yeah. Which quote always comes to mind is, and I'm probably not getting it correct, but it's something like this. It was Bruce Lee,
Oh,
and he says, "You have to be like water. Water takes the form of the glass, right? So you have to be water. So whatever, glass you're given, it's your job to, just like any crowd. Like sometimes there's a crowd that is tired or the room is hot, and that's going to affect them, right? The lights are on. You're in a club, you're in a dance club, and they won't turn the lasers off. And they're,
like going in your eyes.
I've been in so many of those. And I'll be like, "Hey, can you turn the lights off?" And then after a while, I become the high maintenance guy who's asking for, "Hey, did you hear that buzz in the sound system?" I'm that guy, right? But it's like after a while, you're like, okay, this is, that's that glass, and I have to adapt to it. And that's what really, it makes you stronger. And it sounds so cliche, but that does make you stronger as a comedian. You put yourself in all these different situations. It's like when you're working out, that muscle confusion, they call it, right? Where like, let's say you do these certain ab exercises every day, you're not going to get sore. But if you switch up the routine, you're going to be sore the next day, and it's going to hurt, but you're going to be like, I grew.
Totally. Yeah, that's a good way
know?
to know. I'm like, oh, working out.
Yeah,
what is that?
I built.
But yeah. No. Ah, yes, this metaphor.
And can
relatable.
I just pay you a compliment, by the way?
Oh, yes.
Because okay, you saying like you were just saying, you were referring to me as like you've headlined and all that stuff. But I want to tell you that I look at you as, even though if you have, I don't know if you have or haven't headlined a show or what, but
Barely.
you are that, but maybe you just haven't done it yet. That's just what I want to tell you, because I mean,
Thank you.
I even told my friend in Hawaii, his name is Yoda, and he saw that I was doing the show with you, and he loves you. He saw you on a clip. I think it was probably Laugh Factory, and he goes,
Cool.
"Oh, I love her. You had a bit about Chinglish or something."
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
The good old
Good,
Chinglish
good old
joke.
Chinglish joke.
A classic.
Okay, and he quoted it to me. So like,
Oh,
you know what I
wow.
mean? Like, and I just always hear great stuff about you and know great stuff about you. So like, it's like when you're sometimes like when I think of this myself, I'm like, wow, I'm not this, but I want to be that, right? Like, I look at Joe Coy, for example, who I open for right now. Sometimes I like, you naturally compare yourself, right? And I go, man, this dude is like, you just see some of the things he's doing, and like some of the things he's definitely like a great person for me to look up to, and to like, I want to go that way. You know what I mean? And I got to look at it as like, okay, I have that within me. So like maybe my insides haven't caught up to my outside yet. So I just want you to like, just know that like
yeah.
you're doing the right thing too. Like if I can, not that I'm the authority, but I'm just saying, yeah.
No, that's a huge, yeah,
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you so much. That means a lot. I mean, it is interesting. I like what you are saying about the insides and outsides, because it is really like, I think there's the battle when in entertainment and entertainers, it's like, we kind of obviously have some sort of confidence to do this in the first place
Yeah.
because it is kind of like a weird profession. But then, I don't know. I feel like witnessing either people who are, have already had their insides on their outsides for a long time, or also seeing the flip where it's like, oh, that person's not quite ready, but they think they are, so you're kind of like always trying to like walk that line and figure it out. I kind of recently watched, I think, Joe Coy perform in Hawaii,
Oh, yeah.
like on Netflix, and it was just hilarious because it's like, oh, wow, that's like, that's very cool that, you're opening for him and also just like seeing that in person. I'm sure. I don't know if you've had any like particular stories
man.
there, but and then also it's coming out on Netflix soon, so
Yeah,
that's
so
very
his
exciting.
next special is called the special you're talking about is called Coming in Hot. That's the one in Hawaii. So then I started touring with him last summer, which like right before that came out, and then right after that I started doing touring stuff with him. So he's now this whole last year, and then the one that's coming out in June 12th is called In His Elements, and I actually helped with it. So I'm like so stoked.
Nice. Okay. Look
Yeah,
out
I'm
for
not
that,
on-
everyone. Yeah, I did see that trailer.
Yeah, I'm
Looks
not
really
on
cool.
it, but I might have. I saw there's one frame where I'm in the background. So maybe
Nice. Well, I mean, it's kind of documentary style. Is that what's kind of happening? It's like both stand up and
yeah,
behind
it's
the
actually
scenes?
it's a variety show. So he hosts it, and he has 3 other comedians. He has 2 DJs. He has a dance crew and a musical act performing, and then he's got cultural packages that he goes around in the field in Manila, and like
I see.
takes the comedians and the and the artists around the Philippines, and like you learn something about Filipino culture. It's the first comedy special to ever be shot in the Philippines. Yeah, so it's like I call
really?
it
Wow.
I call
Okay,
it
that's exciting.
a celebration of Filipino arts and culture. Like that's what it is. Yeah,
Okay,
and
cool.
it's super fun. You're gonna learn something,
That'll be great.
and you'll have fun watching it. So I have tons of stories, and they'll probably come out. But like it was like you dream of, as a comedian, you dream of what would be the craziest, awesome thing to experience as a comedian, and we did that. We went on a world tour. We went to all over the U.S. We went to Australia, which is one of my bucket list places.
Oh, cool. Yeah. I've never
Yeah,
been.
I held a koala, pet kangaroos,
Oh, wow. Oh my gosh.
fed
Things to do.
fed kangaroos, and like it was. And then we went to New Zealand. We went to Dubai, which if you ever want to feel poor, go to Dubai.
Right. That's the one with like all the crazy hotels and
Oh
like
my-
island hotels. Yeah.
It's like,
Incredible.
I mean, they don't have any gambling there, but you always hear it compared to Vegas, and that's accurate. It's like if Vegas was brand new everywhere, no trash anywhere, and there's no gambling. There's I think you can drink there. I just don't drink, so I don't know. But it's beautiful. It's amazing there. And then we went to in Canada, and then all over the U.S. We did the Forum, which was one of the last shows that we got to do before everything went down.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and we did 2 sold out shows at the Forum. Like,
Whoa.
Crazy.
I literally saw like Ariana Grande at the Forum. Like that's my context for that. It's like a concert
Yeah.
venue, right? And then I remember seeing
Yeah.
like I think Michelle Obama did her book tour there, so they kind of like made it into like a stage and everything. But I mean, what
Yep.
a rock star place to go.
exactly. And I mean, this is a guy that I kind of started with, Joe. In a way, I mean, we both had our own starts, and then we met a few years in. He's been doing it a couple of years longer than me, but we met at the Laugh Factory right when he moved to LA. And I've just known him and run into him and kept in touch with him. And so to see like, okay, well, at one point we were doing the same rooms and on the same path and stuff, and then he found what it was that took him to that level, and then for him to take me along with him is such a confidence booster, and
Yeah.
shows me that there's a way to get there. And like, I'm just trying to absorb as much as I can. And it's been such a lucky thing, you know, of like, I've gotten to those places many times where I'm like, what am I doing? Like, you know, you get to those places where you're like, you know, am I delusional? You know, like, have you ever felt that way?
Oh, really? I mean, yes, of course. I
Yeah.
think it's only natural, but you know, I think it's always interesting and inspiring hearing from people who I look up to, like yourself, and people who are, you know, because that's the case. It's like everybody's at different levels, and you know, hearing even from someone who, like yourself, has those feelings, and it feels a little bit more like, well, it's scary because then it's like, oh, does it never stop, right? But then it's
Right.
also good to know that like it's something that doesn't go away, in the sense of like, you know, that's kind of part of it too. So it's only
Yeah.
natural to have these feelings.
Yeah, it's like what I mean by like thinking like, am I delusional? Is like there have been times where, you know, you just hear such great feedback. I'll hear great feedback from fans, right? And they'll be like, "You're great. Why, you know?" And you hear, "Why don't you do this show? And why don't you do that show?"
Right.
And then you just keep hearing the same things, of like, "Man, you're the best," and you're like, "Okay, well, there seem to be a lot of people who are really into what I'm doing. So what's the disconnect with, like, what am I not getting? What am I not understanding about, you know, say, for instance, like the industry, like not responding in the way that I want them to, right?" But what I've kind of learned, and I started to learn from working with Joe, is that maybe I wasn't putting it in the right place, or it wasn't lining up, it wasn't visible, or it wasn't put in the right context or something. You know what I mean? Like opening for Joe
Right.
at the Forum, it was like it was the best show of my life. Like it was like that kind of thing, like where it's the best show of your life, and you're like, that was easy. It was like I knew who the crowd was going to be when I got on. So it was that puzzle that I've done a million times, at times 100. You know, it's like it was the crowd
Right.
I love.
Multiplied.
Like, and so I'm saying, like,
That's awesome.
I go, when I work with Joe, I go, okay, there's a big audience out there that likes what I do, and this just was a matter of finding
Totally.
that audience. So
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it's weird because I think we have so little control over like industry stuff too, and I wonder this because it's like, you know, I'm pretty still new to a lot of it, but I think like, you know, even just talking with friends who are completely not in entertainment, and you know, I think there's just taking for granted the control over your career and stuff like that I think is more possible in other things and in what we normally accept to be a job. But like, you know, there are a lot of things out of our control. And oftentimes when like I listen to people who maybe have made it in whatever respective field or something, like it's really inspiring. Like I was listening to Kevin Hart on a podcast the other day, and it's like, he's such an inspiring person, but I think it's also, you know, only so many things can we listen to and be like, I mean, yes, but also as much as some things are in our control, some things aren't. So maybe it's tough to like hear from somebody who, you know, has achieved the goal that they set for themselves to turn around and be like, oh yeah, and so this is how you do it or whatever. And it's like, you just got to put the work in and got to love what you do. And it's like, yeah, I think,
but
I
it's
think we
crazy.
get
Like
that.
once you get there, you're probably going to say the same thing. But it's just
Right,
it's
right,
just
of
that
course.
I was having this conversation actually today about something else. But it's like when you're in the forest, you can't see what's on the other side. And it's like it's a different mindset of like when you're already on the other side and you go, oh yeah, all you have to do is this. But it's hard.
Right.
It's hard to see it when you're in the forest, you know?
Yeah, no, that's so true. Have you had moments like that ever where you kind of, because I find that I forget that I ever thought differently than I think today, you know, like even if it's not to do with career or anything, if it's like, oh yeah, I always was believed that like I should be, eating this way or something. And then I'm like, oh yeah, actually like month ago, I was not doing that at all in my life, and I like don't have the memory sometimes to realize like, oh yeah, I guess I have changed my mind. But I don't know if you have any moments where you're like, oh yeah, maybe back then I thought this way or
like changing
otherwise.
your mind. Yeah. There's a book called The Four Agreements that's like talks about like, how we have these agreements in our mind and like how they got there and how what you can do to change them, and like gives you these four like kind of agreements / rules of things to try to stay on. Anyway, but it just gives you that like you can change your mind. You know what has really helped with like digging into work. Okay, what happened to me was I broke my foot about a year and a half ago. Oof. And I didn't get, normally I would get like really down about it because I love running and being active and stuff. And I actually broke it running. But I had just listened to this audiobook. It's called Can't Hurt Me. It's by David Goggins. Do you know who he is?
Oh, sounds familiar, but I don't think I know.
Yeah, he's an ex-Navy SEAL and ultra marathoner, and he talks about how like working hard was one of his themes, is working hard even though you don't want to. It's like, yeah, life is hard work. You have to go through pain. But it's short-term pain, and on the other side of short-term pain is like long-term happiness, long-term pleasure, right? But if you go through the short-term pleasure that you get from like doing whatever, then you're gonna have long-term pain. So, yeah, that hit me. I heard somebody say it that way, and he was referring to David Goggins, and it's a book that he was like summarizing what he had said, right? And I thought of it that way, and I'm like, okay, cool. So I've been now just this week I've been taking. This is gonna sound so stupid, but I've been taking cold showers because
oh no,
it's like good for you. It's supposed to be like many benefits, and I'm like, and also just training my mind of like, okay, it's short-term pain and it's not comfortable, but I'm gonna get used to it. And every time I get in, it's easier. I've only done it like 4 days in a row now.
That's
yeah.
plenty.
Yeah, I've done it.
But no, that's a great like mini example of what that is, because that is very, very intense pain for a short amount of time, but still.
Yeah. But and then
it's the last thing you want in the morning,
Yeah, well, I get easy. It gets easier, and like it gets like I kind of am trying to make myself like it, right?
Cool.
Like be cool, be like looking forward to it,
Wow.
So, and I feel better when I get out. I'm like, oh my God, thank you. It felt so good. It's like refreshing instead of relaxing.
Interesting. Yeah. I mean, that's a great way to put it, refreshing instead of relaxing. But also, I mean, if you are a runner and an active person, I think that also couples, like exercise is a great example too, right? Where it's like, oh, terrible in the short run, and then like you feel great afterward. And I have to remind myself that too, because I really, I'm terrible at working out, especially now with the lockdown. But I went on like a little jog just around the block, and I thought I was like, wow, I'm so out of shape. Like afterward, I was just so out of breath. I was like, wow, I feel like my lungs are just like gonna pop out of my chest. Like I don't know what's going on, but I felt way more energized afterward. And it took me a long time to realize, and I guess maybe, I don't know but I used to play sports as a kid. I played a lot of basketball and just as a high schooler and stuff, and within the school structure and things like that. So I enjoyed like the camaraderie and like the teamwork that I got out of it and the friends, but I don't think I ever really understood and you're also a kid, so you're not really thinking about physical activity as like health.
Yeah.
But I think I always coupled it with like, oh, well, it's such a waste of time because what am I gonna become, a basketball player, but then only in like recent adult life, it's like, okay, yes, there's like mental, benefits as well as physical, and that short-term pain does actually bring long-term like good stuff. So, so that, I mean, and the shower is a real intense version of that. So I have not gone
I think
to that
I'm lucky.
yet,
I think I'm lucky that I like looking at myself in the mirror.
Good.
So I'm like, you know what? I got to do more
Motivation.
push-ups.
Yeah. I mean, look, we got plenty of time for that. It's like just us. Just hanging out with ourselves. But yeah, I mean, like I also think that applies so much to like today now, because people are kind of realizing, like, even with our phones and things like that, that is sort of like that short-term pleasure or like whatever. And then it takes this, like, we're now discovering, it's really taking a toll on us. And
Yeah.
I don't know if, I feel like I am always trying to work on habits and things like that and building habits. But with this shower thing, like,
Yeah.
I don't know, like, do you feel like you've had other things in the past that made you feel like, okay, this shower thing is the thing that I can do? Or like, because to me, I don't know, like, I think it takes a certain person to embark upon a thing to know that that's for them. And I guess I'm just, wondering what you think of that.
Well, it's just cold water.
Sure.
I mean, you gotta look at it that way. It's like, I used to be a swimmer, right?
Okay.
So, I mean, I still swim, but I mean, can't really get to a pool these days, nor would I really want to. But so cold water, I mean, I've been in a lot of cold water, so maybe that's a little easier for me. But you're saying like other things like that I've done?
Mean, the way that you just said it right then, like, it's just cold water. I feel like that's very revealing. It shows that you're not like making anything bigger than it needs to be. So that's good.
Like, are you really going to die? No, you're going to be
die.
uncomfortable.
I'm going to melt.
Like
the witch.
You're going to be uncomfortable. So also, it's like we're uncomfortable right now. And like, and that's one of the things in the Goggins book that is really heavy in there. He said it's like basically getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, you know?
Sure.
And then you can, that's why his book is called Can't Hurt Me. It's like whatever you throw at me, I'm going to be cool with it. You know, if you throw cold water at me, he has some stuff about cold water when he was in military training and SEALs training. Yeah. And like they had to get in the ocean and they're freezing and they're like out all night in the sand after they've been in the ocean. And so, yeah, it's like you learn how to like be comfortable with it and thrive off of it. And then any adversity that comes your way, that will put you so much further ahead of everybody, right? I've heard Kevin Hart actually say something about, and this is a very popular thought about, it's like, it's not about how it's not about how you succeed, it's how you fail, something like that. Mm-hmm. But that's so true. It's like, you're going to get knocked off balance, and like, how do you recover? How do you stand up straight again? You know, I think, especially lately, that's like what I've been trying to remember for sure.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Because I mean, this is the time to do it. You know, this is the time that it's happening. This is like, the shit has never hit the fan this hard. You know?
Yeah, it happened. We made it happen.
Yeah. So if we can get through this, we're gonna be so strong.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that's another great way, I think, to find the silver lining. Do you have a favorite, like, failure or way that you recovered from a failure?
I'm still recovering from it. Let's see. Like a specific incident. I should remember these. Have them ready to go for podcasts.
Yeah, you got to write them down. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I think,
honestly, I mean, we try to forget our failures too. That's another way to deal.
Yeah, I guess. One that always hits me is like, I remember that when I was doing a comedy contest. It was the Boston Comedy Festival, and I was doing this comedy contest, and I was killing it. Like, there's multiple rounds, different nights.
Right.
And I was doing great. And like, people were being real nice to me because they could see I was going to go far in this contest, supposedly. Uh-huh. And they were like, "Oh, you're great. If you need anything, I got you. I have this house out in Cape Cod. If you want to come and, just hang out,
Whoa.
I'll show you around."
Good fans.
Well, these were other comics in the contest, and for some reason they were being real nice to me because I was killing every night. So then we get to like the semifinals or whatever, and I'm following the this guy who kills. They love him. They love his personality. I had not seen him before, but he killed. And then I go on and I bomb so hard. Like, I don't think I've ever bombed that hard since then. And it was because I didn't like recognize what was going on stage before me and address it, or like, you know, hadn't learned that lesson yet. And that really taught it to me, because I felt so embarrassed. I felt like there was like bookers and huge industry. Like if I would have done great, I probably would have gotten some kind of opportunity for sure. And then I just like, you know, you get into it just hits you like a ton of bricks, that kind of bomb, right?
Sure.
But I've recovered from it, because like now I got that. Like I can still tap into that pain of like, if you're doing something like that, you better pay attention to what's going on, and you can't just go on and like think you're going to kill. You know, that was one of the first times that, you know, I've been in that situation a couple times where you're going on stage and you're like, hey, I know what's going to happen. I'm going to do great. You got to start from zero every time. At least I do.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I got to like not feel like I've earned anything before I go on. And that's not to say like, yeah, I'm not saying like it's like a low self-esteem type of thing. I'm just saying I'm just trying to make myself put everything into it. You know, like if you're an athlete,
Right.
if you're Michael Jordan, you think Michael Jordan went on the court every night and thought, I got this in the bag. No, he went out and was like, I'm going to be Michael Jordan tonight.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I see. But yeah, so then that's how you obviously were able to like learn from it. So that's good. But I mean, to be fair, I mean, I also did the Boston Comedy Festival, and I was knocked out the first night. So you were way beyond me.
A different week, different time, different circumstances. And I've been knocked out the first night of many contests, and
I mean, the contest thing, I don't know how you feel about the contest thing. I feel like I did the Seattle one, which is another one of those comedy competition things. And I think I didn't know, well, I didn't really know it was going to be a contest going in. Which is fine. You just do what you do. You just do stand up. It's not like that different. But I do find them to be like kind of weird.
Oh, yeah.
Like I think they're just a weird setting, you know? And like,
look,
I've never done well, so I think that's probably why I find them
comedy
weird.
is not it's not a competitive sport for sure. But it's
Right.
You know what, it's one of those training grounds of like, you know, putting yourself in awkward positions that it does make you stronger, in my opinion. Like
Sure.
I did the San Francisco comedy competition like 3 times, and that's the sister festival to the Seattle one. And it was like, I just looked at it as boot camp, you know?
Yeah. It's a lot of stage time, which is good. And like going up in different places too, which is nice, like getting the different crowds. So that's kind of helpful. But yeah, I mean, I think like those types of things where, you know, especially if there's a build up or it's like easy to look back and be like, oh, I could have done this differently or whatnot. But at the end of the day too, I think it's like, I do sometimes wonder with like, especially stand up, like how much weight we do put on things that maybe we didn't actually control, whether that's good or bad. Right. So it's sort of like even if I kill one night, it's like, oh yeah, it was totally me, you know?
Yeah.
And then like, I look back, I'm like, you know, I think they were just a
That's
happy
so
crowd.
true. That's so true.
versa.
Like I had a manager that always used to say, you're not as bad as your worst set and you're not as good as your best set. You're somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
Like don't
Really blurring the
don't
edges,
believe your
yeah.
own hype, she used to say. Like that was such a great lesson of like if you got a big article written about you and they're praising you, you can't like start believing that, because then you think you got it wrapped up.
Right. And then you go out with the complacency thing, I guess, and that's tough. But yeah, I mean, that's, I think too, it is kind of lucky in some ways that we have such a clear gauge of how we do, supposedly, meaning like, you know, I think it's hard to get feedback in the world, and then literally how the crowd feels is like our direct feedback, so we can tell when we fail. Versus maybe it's hard to tell failing at other things, and then you don't find out till later.
And like now even on social media, like every post that I do, I'm like, okay, I want this to do well on social media. And then there's been some things that I really believed in, and for some reason didn't do as well as I thought it was gonna do. And like this, just even recently, I've just been really just trying to tell myself, put out stuff that you believe in, and it's like it's that whole outsides versus insides thing that we mentioned is like okay, the audience may not be seeing it yet, but there's something's going to come out of this. Something, if you're putting out stuff that you like, I feel like something eventually will come out of it. And there's been times when it didn't hit right away, or maybe like years later, that thing that I created all those years back and I thought was maybe worthless because nobody really responded to it, comes back and becomes like an amazing like piece of content, or does something very successful. So
Totally.
you just gotta like believe in, like they say, believe in yourself, believe in what you're doing. I think that's like an example of like when you put something out and it doesn't, that joke that you say that bombs the first time, and you keep doing it and it eventually becomes great.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a tough thing to know because you don't want to be foolishly like pushing something that's not necessarily good. But if you believe in it, you believe in it. And I mean, also too, that reminds me just like the fact that you are doing so many, multimedia, but like that you have so many different talents, like you're musical, you obviously do PowerPoints, I mean, you're definitely approaching stand-up in a way that I think a lot of people are scared to do. And I think it's like, it's definitely a thing where it's such a, like many things, it's very saturated. Like there's so many stand-up comedians, so it is important to find a way to set yourself apart. And like, what did you start from, did you start off knowing that you might want to try these other things because you had these other talents, or was that something that you worked in and was there resistance, or
Yeah, that's a great question. Thanks. So I started like, I guess, entertainment from a musical place. I was a DJ, and it's like I spent my bar mitzvah money on DJ equipment.
Oh yeah, I think I saw that.
Yeah,
that's great.
And
it's good investment.
Yeah, for sure. Not college. Gotta get them turntables.
Right. It's a different kind of college.
Yeah, exactly. And so I always loved music, and I would like make up songs. I would play these songs over and over, and I would like start making up other lyrics and stuff. So like that was like a parody song, and I was always into comedy as well. And I was my friends would always encourage me to. They were like, you should do comedy, because I would do characters and stuff and recite other comedians' bits. So that kind of resonated with me. I'd be like, oh wow, that would be really fun. And then I think another part of it is that my mom was always encouraging me, because she was a ballerina, and
wow.
I think she could have had a full ride scholarship to, I forgot what the school is, but it's like some big deal school in New York, right? Cool. So she could have been. I think she always felt like she should have pursued that, or she missed out on something. And so she always told me like very strongly, do what you love. Like she was very adamant about it. And it really stuck with me. She goes, no matter what anyone says, even me, do what you love and like go for it. So I always took that to heart. Cool. Yeah. And so as far as like, so that's what I think gave me the courage to be like, okay, this is what I want to do, right? I also pretty early on did a book actually called The Artist's Way, which is really popular.
Oh, right.
Yeah, really popular book, and it helps you like kind of figure things out. I mean, helps you figure out where you come from, why you think this way, what you really love, and what to do with it. Make a plan on what to do with it. And that really helped me like, okay, what would be the most fun thing for me to do? And I had already been incorporating music into it like from early. But then I was like, I would love to make it kind of like a hybrid of DJing and stand up. And that's kind of where like now I'll do stand up, and then I'll launch into a song and then go back to stand up. And then I started adding visuals into that too. So, and then my new podcast, which I've released a couple episodes of it, but it's scarily hard to produce. And I knew that going in. It's called Podcast the Musical. And I do, like, basically we're doing a podcast right now, so I'd go back into the interview and make songs based on our conversation, right?
Oh, okay.
So-
Yeah, I think I read. Oh, wow. Yeah. So
Yeah.
that takes a lot of extra work on top of the work.
Yeah, I'm in the middle of it right now. So I've have like 8 or 9 interviews that I recorded before everything happened.
Oh, cool.
And so I'm trying to get the songs done. It's such a huge project. I'm like, but I knew going into that. So, but you asked if there was resistance against it. Yes. I know it's out there. Not many people really say it to my face. But I know it's a different thing.
Oh,
I don't know.
resistance to like from the outside.
Yeah,
Okay, I see.
but-
Yeah. I think, also I was wondering too, like if you had any reservations
me.
going in, but I didn't even
Oh, for
realize.
other-
Well, no, I mean, I
yeah.
didn't realize that there might also be
Yeah, but
a rebelling force on the outside.
yeah. So within me, yeah, because you get a little scared of like, okay, this isn't what people are used to. But then you hear, people that talk about success. Then they say that's exactly what you should go for when you start feeling like no one's
Yeah.
doing this. Should I do it? Like I'll be the only one doing it. And they always say that's exactly what you should do. So that gave me permission to do it in my mind. But yeah, from
Totally.
other people, yes. And that's another thing. Like you hear when people. You might get some resistance to if you're doing something different, and that's okay. It just means you also hear if you're polarizing, that's a good thing. People are not going to like certain things you do. You don't like some of the most popular people out there, and I've seen many, many great successful comedians that I love get a lot of hate, and so. I mean, whatever. It just might mean that I'm doing something great, right?
That's
yeah.
awesome.
As long as it's like, if I feel like it's something worthwhile, then that's all that really matters for me.
I have heard people talk about like, if you're doing something and people don't like it, maybe you're doing something right. And, there's so much in myself, at least, where I think, I don't know though, I kind of feel like I got into comedy because I wanted people to like me. And like, that's not a good reason to get into comedy then, because clearly that's not going to happen. So so it's kind of interesting. And like, as, I hear that more and people who actually, deal with some pushback, like it is funny thinking about like, I guess there's there's really no person out there who is just universally beloved. So that's not even a thing. And then also I think I try to flip it where it's like, okay, if I'm like critical of a comedian in my head and I'm like, I don't know, it's not for me. I certainly don't think that they should ever care what I think.
Yeah.
I don't expect them to be like, oh, well, if you commented that under my post, then I should stop.
Yeah.
So I think I just have to take that same thing on
You
the
know
other
what you
side.
said, and I was like, oh wow, that's interesting how the brain fools us, and depending on which way we're looking at it, is like you said,
Right.
you said, I got into comedy because I wanted people to like me. Meanwhile, there's all these people who do like you, like it's not like
Sure, I
everyone,
mean, yeah,
it's not
it's
like everyone
definitely-
hates you.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that, it's the same old thing where we key
Right.
in on negative. So like if we could be, I mean, I definitely live an entire life inside of my brain where it's like probably very different, and then I see that on other people
Oh,
too.
I do the
and
same
it's kind
thing.
of,
Yeah,
right. We're just neurotic,
right,
crazy
right.
people, but it's part of the fun.
exactly.
I don't know. I mean, especially with the quarantine stuff, but it just, there's just bad news everywhere. But in particular, I was kind of keying in on like, there was some cyberbullying stuff that was happening with this like reality show that I watch called Terrace House, which is like, it's on Netflix. It's kind of this cult following, but it's actually a Japanese reality show. And And basically it's like the anti-reality show in the sense that like here in the US, like we have a lot of like The Bachelor, which I used to love to watch and still do often. And there's a lot of drama and a lot of like produced stuff where you're like, they're making that up. The producers are behind the scenes like trying to sabotage this and that, right? But then this particular reality show, it's very like calm and like people get along, and it's just sort of like watching people like go to the grocery store. Like it's very it's very zen, very like, I don't know how to describe it exactly. But then one was cyberbullied and to the point where she committed suicide, so it's very sad. But I think I was just thinking a lot about just like, oh man, this person, honestly, who knows what's going on in their lives and everything. But I think it was particularly resonating for a lot of us, I think, that are on social media and read these things, and then you watch someone like her who she was just very sweet, and like everyone seemed to like her, and I liked her. Everybody was like, she doesn't,
How could
got
you
no problem.
wanna?
But there was still some things that made her sad, obviously.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story.
How could anyone wanna bully that person, right? And it's a lot of times
Right.
like when you hit that criticism, I try to think of it like when I've get negative comments or whatever, and then I think I have to flip it in my mind, and I go, okay, well that just means it's hitting an audience that it wasn't intended for, and that's good because it means my video's spreading. Like it's inevitable that
Outside of the
it's like
followers.
if my video doesn't do all that well, I would say there's more chance that the comments are going to be positive, all positive. You know what I mean? Because it means it's in my circle.
That's a good point.
If it's getting a lot of bad comments, and if it's like small and it has a lot of bad comments, that's another thing. That means like my inner circle doesn't like it. But if it's you know what I mean, that means that you gotta. That's the wrong way to go. But if it gets popular, and then there's a lot of negative comments, that just means it's reaching this audience you didn't even know was out there. It's new audience. It's getting and I've never had anything that got like the majority of bad comments. It's just like those few, and
Sure.
and you keep seeing them because if it's a very popular video, like I had one video that did 17 million views, and there was overwhelmingly positive, but then you see 100 negative comments, and then you say, but there's
Which is a great
there's
percentage, but yeah.
10,000 positive comments, but you're like, wow, I read 100 negative comments, and then all the positive ones look the same, right? After a while, because you're so numb to the positivity.
It's a different situation in stand-up especially because it's so like when you're headlining places, you're going to venues that like have their own following. So you're definitely encountering a lot of people outside of your chosen audience, even if you are the name on the marquee, because that's just the nature of like, who's playing at the Improv tonight?
Yeah.
Like, let's go. Right. And it's not necessarily like predicated on like, are we fans of the headliner? So, I mean, I think that like, that's a really cool thing that's maybe getting more and more lost just because we're splintering off more TV shows. So fewer people watching each show, and probably the people who you expect are watching each show or whatever. But stand-up is a place where I think you still get to like reach that audience where it might be different than usual. So, I mean, I guess like, many questions, I guess. But have you kind of noticed that, or like, what's sort of the secret weapon?
I'm so glad that you
you've
said that,
built from
because that's such a great observation. When I started, which probably was before you were born. I don't know. I sound so old saying that. That's like the oldest old guy. Before you were born. You were young when I started. I started in 94.
That's when I was born.
See? I was accurate.
Yeah. So, I was around.
Okay.
I wasn't hitting mics, but I was.
No, not yet. You had to wait a couple of years.
Not yet.
A couple of years.
Yeah, I had to grow a little.
So that's when I started. And like the difference between then and now, as far as like audiences go, is you're totally right. Like social media and the internet in general has allowed people to refine their tastes and so specifically that you can have an audience that will support you and support your a whole career, and the general public will never know your name. Like household name versus niche name, right? You can still be super successful as a niche name, as a niche thing. And I think it's good and bad. It's like there are fewer people that are huge household names, like that really take over the whole national like spotlight. Like there was, like, let's say like in the 90s, there was like Seinfeld, Roseanne, who else there was Arsenio Hall because he had his show, but like all those huge names. Dice Clay was huge in the 90s. Sam Kinison. Those are big names that everybody knew. Everyone knew those names. Johnny Carson, everyone knew. I mean, he had the Tonight Show, but if you got on Johnny Carson in the 70s and 80s, you were an overnight success,
Right. Yeah, that doesn't really exist as much now.
Yeah, and now it's like, it's a good thing though, because like you can still kind of fly under the radar in the real world, and you've got this like great successful career with PowerPoint fans,
There you go. Yeah, you got to get those Comic Sans fans. I mean, I think I definitely have heard that as well, like kind of the nostalgia over there's like I think I was watching some video where they called Tom Cruise like the last real movie star or something, because there's not even, even in other things, like even there's definitely movie stars, but I think that like more and more, like I'll talk to friends and maybe they don't know the people that I'm a big fan of, in TV or something.
I would be interested to know.
But
I would be interested to know from you before I forget. I want to ask you. So like, who do you think is like the biggest star in your whole lifetime? Like just the biggest star that's been in your whole lifetime, and then I'll tell you about what in my lifetime and the difference. So who do you think?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, so a couple. I don't know who. Okay, who they? I mean, I don't
Lady
know. I
Gaga?
guess like. Oh yeah, music. Yeah, I didn't think about music.
I'm saying like who is like in the whole world, or
who became famous,
who,
kind of.
I can't think of anybody, but you would know more than me because it's like your thing. But like since say 2000, who's somebody who has like just swept the nation and the world, like biggest superstar in the world? When I was growing up, there was Michael Jackson, who like he'd go anywhere in the world and people would lose their shit. Like they would just almost pass out at the sight of him. People, it's so crazy, right? Like, but now also celebrity has been devalued a bit because everyone's more accessible.
Sure, yeah, that's a good point. It feels more
human.
human.
Like everyone's puts out way more stuff. I gotta try to put something out almost every day.
Like a cameo.
Yeah, you can get a cameo.
Yeah, I mean, like Twitter, even the fact that I can get a birthday message from Miley Cyrus. No, I mean the fact that Twitter came about so you can actually hear what people are thinking, whether that's good or bad, right? It was actually such a brand new thing, but like now we take it for granted. I don't know who the biggest star, because it's also like so hard. I feel very like American, where like I'll learn something new every day about the fact that like, oh, that's not a universal thing, so I'm kind of stupid.
When you said Twitter though, I was like, oh, I know who it is. Donald Trump. Not that he's a celebrity, but like, who's somebody that like everyone,
as far as international recognition, just complete. Yeah, I mean, and that makes sense. Yeah, I think it would probably be Donald Trump, as much as that's disappointing and sad. But
like it's like the anti-celebrity almost. Like we don't celebrate. Not everyone celebrates him.
Right. A notorious. Whatever, the anti-celebrity. Yeah, I mean it is interesting because even within like subcultures too, like I realize how even within the comedy world, like we know about certain comedians and it's like, oh yeah, I guess that's not super well known of a person, like, and then we can even see that when they start to make their way into movies or TV, and then everybody's like, oh, who's this up and comer, and you're like, oh, that person's been doing comedy for ages, but then it's like, oh, Tiffany Haddish, who is she? You know what I mean? Like there's things like that where people cross over into like a slightly bigger audience, and then everybody's like, whoa,
it's crazy. Like Tiffany, like my parents knew her because she'd been over to my house, and like we all been, and then they're like, oh, Tiffany's doing so good. Mm-hmm. But like, even when I started working with Joe, like they hadn't heard of Joe.
Right.
And I'm like, how the hell he's fucking selling out the huge stadiums and like, or arenas and like, not stadiums yet, but arenas.
Yeah. I mean.
He will though. He will do stadiums.
Yeah. A lot of people don't. Yeah. I mean, and even within, Asian American community, I think there's a ton of people who were like, yeah, like that person is the biggest star ever. And then I realized they're like, okay, I guess, yeah, they are kind of, mainly they're series regular on a network show. And that's like a big deal to us. But maybe if you don't watch that show, you're not going to know even remotely who that person is, let alone like the fact that it's like not the main character. I don't know. It's just so funny how that can get subdivided. But it makes it so that I think, I mean, the weird thing, like we're saying, celebrity getting a little bit diminished, but everyone's a celebrity, it feels. So like I even feel like friends who aren't necessarily in entertainment, but like they've kind of found their way of having an audience by being like in activism or something where they're doing something that like is very interesting and very cool, and to share about what you're doing is like not such a weird concept anymore,
Yeah, that's a public figure, right? So like there's so many more public figures now that it's like if you can even stand out a little bit, you got to give yourself credit, If you get that a little bit of shine, you be like, wow, I really, definitely give yourself credit. That's one thing I feel like I need to do more too, is like give yourself credit for those little successes, because you're only going to pump yourself up for that bigger one, right? Yeah, fool yourself.
Cool, yeah.
Fool yourself. Like, be that parent who's like, you're a genius. Like, put that. Yeah, it's like it's so.
Do you have a celebration tactic or favorite thing to do?
Yeah, it's important to reward yourself, for sure. You know what? This is gonna sound dumb. I sometimes reward myself with running. Mm-hmm. I go running. I know.
You did it again.
I hate this.
No, but that's great. I mean, so you're like, yeah, I'm going to go on a freaking run. I did it.
Because everyone else is like, I hate running. I love it. I really, I wish I could last running. Like, I wish I could run 100 miles. I can't physically do it.
Oh, wow. Uh-huh.
But it's just like.
What's the longest distance you've ever
run? A marathon, 26.2. And it's one of the hardest things I've ever done. I've done it twice.
Too much.
Yeah, the amount of training that you have to do is insane. And it's like, I just wish I could figure out a way to train. Like when I did marathon training, there are some times that you have when you're building up to the mileage, you're doing like 3-hour runs, maybe longer, depending on how fast you run. And it's like, you're like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. You're done with it.
Yeah.
And so I would say, I wish I could get strong enough or figure it out, like how to do those ultra long distances. I just can't. My body will give out after a while.
But that's so fascinating that like you want to do it. Like, I guess to me, I've always, I really haven't run that much, but I always felt like, the little bit of like long distances that I think the longest I've ever run is like 5 miles. But even with like, people would always be like, oh, but the endorphins. And I'm like, I don't even know.
You need to break through that ceiling.
That
no, but that's true. I just love the adventure. Cause I grew up, near, open space. I grew up in Thousand Oaks, California, and there's like a lot of hiking trails and stuff. And I would go on my bike and like go through the fields and the hills and stuff, and just it's beautiful out there. The weather, when the weather's really nice, and I feel like what I love about running is the adventure of like just you on your feet, and you're going through the earth, and you're conquering the earth.
Sure.
And I don't know, it sounds dumb, but
no, that sounds very like returning to your like primal roots of I am a runner and this is how we get places,
yeah, like I feel like
very
that's
cool.
what I like about it, is the adventure. And,
Sweet.
and like
Yeah,
I went all the way.
That makes
Yeah,
sense.
like I went all the way. I went 20 miles on my feet, on just with my own legs. It's just, and the other part that I really like is like I don't always gift myself the run because I have other stuff to do, and
It's a bit of a time
yeah,
commitment.
and like sometimes
You
if I'm
wanna
doing a
run
big show, if I'm doing a show that night, if I get too tired, I'm gonna be a zombie on stage, right? So I gotta be careful
that's
if I'm gonna do a headlining show. I gotta make sure I can give them the show. So I would, like, let's say I was doing marathon training, or I'm doing a club weekend, and I have like say I have 5 shows, one Thursday, two Friday, 2 Saturday, and 1 Sunday. So that's 6 shows. So I would do smaller runs and like maybe skip days or whatever. I would do smaller runs on the first days, and then the Sunday, when I know like it's my last day, I would do the long run. So, and then what also I like is like after the run, you get to recover and you get to eat whatever you want. If you do those long runs, you're like, yeah, I get to eat what I want.
Sure, yeah. It's part of it.
So then you don't feel so guilty. I don't know. I know I'm doing a song right now for my podcast about smoking weed, which I don't, but my friends do, and it's called my friends do pot. My friends do pot, but I do not. And then I go, I'm not judging them. Everyone has their own addictions. Mine just happen to be things like exercise and vegetables.
And vegetables. Wow, yeah. It's quite the superpower.
Yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it
I don't
makes
know.
sense. Pot's vegetable, right?
Sure. It's a fruit, right? Because it's a flower. It has seeds?
Okay, wow.
It has a seed or a
that
pit?
Makes sense, I guess.
I don't know. It's probably a grain or something. I don't know.
Science. Yeah, that makes sense. I don't know either. But yeah, no, I mean, I think I do wonder sometimes, because it seems like some people are just very equipped to do certain things, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't, like, move yourself to change those interests or whatever. But also, like, even looking at how maybe what I was interested in doing like a few years ago for fun or whatever, then now like that isn't the case, or like physically how I'm feeling.
Well, how do you reward
whatever.
yourself? How do you reward yourself?
How do I celebrate? I mean, I feel like it's very different now in quarantine. But I mean, I would
open
say,
the window.
I'm trying to probably. I mean, I feel like normally I would, maybe go out on the weekend or something, right? Like it's like, do some sort of outing and have a relaxing time, so maybe not quite as healthy, but like, go to a bar or like go to a nice restaurant or something like that. And I feel like now, I mean, I definitely am getting in the unfortunate habit of buying stuff, which I still am pretty, like, I've always been pretty like cheap my whole life, so I'm never really going crazy. But I think like, I'll get like a jacket or something, and even this is like, one of those cheap things. But I say
like that jacket.
I really benefit.
Is it flames?
Thank you.
I love it.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell.
So this is a recent
tell on the
purchase.
Zoom camera, and it's also when you put your hand up like that. I feel like
Right. Yeah. It's just a little flames, a little Guy Fieri sort of imagery for anyone on audio.
But also, if people are looking on video, I feel like I'm sweating. Am I sweating? Yeah, I am. Okay.
Oh,
Don't look at that.
it could be shadow.
No, it's from the flames on your jacket. It's making me hot.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
so
Yeah. Sorry about that. I should have warned you.
I'm trying to position the
Open a
camera
window,
so you can't see my below my shoulders.
Oh, I couldn't see before.
couldn't?
I think it's, it's the strategic sweating where it's hidden if you keep your arms down. So good on you for that. But yeah, I would say I've been buying certain things here and there, but I was never a big clothes buyer before because I got a lot of hand-me-downs, which is nice. My sister would always give me like her clothes and I'd be like, yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
This works. So that's kind of like a recent thing for me. But, I think especially now because we're not spending money on going out to eat or like getting lunch and stuff like that, I feel like, okay, it's kind of nice to have a little extra cash. So if I want to look forward to, instead of looking forward to going to a restaurant, I look forward to getting a package.
Yeah. Isn't that fun now? Getting the packages.
It's quite a thrill.
We're getting like so many packages every day and you go, oh, what's in this one? I forgot what I ordered.
It's Christmas every day, It's like, oh my God, what's in there? And it's like, oh yeah, it's just cans of like energy drink that I bought, like something ridiculous.
What do you think? Now, I really appreciate my delivery workers. Really appreciate them. But the thing is, one of them or somebody, I don't know who it is, they keep putting packages in front of my door. Like, don't they realize I have to...
As opposed to...
Like, because the door opens out.
Oh, to open it.
And I can't open the door.
I didn't even think about that. Oh, so they're like big packages or it's just sort of like, oh shoot, I hit something. Like, might get damaged.
I don't know why they put it right in front of the door. They don't think about it. They go, oh, there's a space there. That's
right.
that I can put the box. But they don't realize that's where the door goes. And
I mean, honestly, yeah, I think for them it's like, after I leave it here, not my problem.
Yeah, I have a door and then I have 3 steps and then a little bit of space and then there's a gate, right?
Okay, so they could just put it inside the gate.
Yeah, and then now we got people putting it outside the gate, which also opens out and is even harder to open because it's like not as strong as a door.
Right.
And they're putting it outside the
You're
gate.
stuck.
Yeah, I'm like, guys.
You can never leave.
I think I need to make a sign. Please put
Yeah.
inside the gate, not in front of door. Thank you.
Yeah,
We
I
love
think
you.
They would know.
I think
they would honor that.
I need to start with thank you, delivery workers.
Yeah.
And like put a rainbow.
You're so appreciated.
Yeah.
Hashtag essential.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think, let's see. So I also have kind of like a little gate outside of the door. And so oftentimes they put it inside of the gate. But I think back at this other apartment complex I used to live at, which had, excuse me, like a complete outside gate where it was very far from the door. I think somebody just like threw it in a bush one time and like it's like never, oh, where did it go? I don't know. Maybe it didn't come. And you're right to the thing. They're like, nope, here it is. Here's a picture. We left it there. And it's like in some random bush, like down the block.
I
So,
feel like
it's just in the general area, I think is kind of the rule.
I feel like you can't get mad right now though. Like
Oh,
this
yeah,
kid-
yeah,
like
not now, I
thank
suppose.
God for those. Thank God. I don't care. Honestly, I don't care if it's in front of my door. Whatever quarantine problem or whatever you would call
Right.
that. But it's just seems a little funny that because like, does it really take that much more effort to open the gate? I don't want to delay them or complicate their jobs because they got it hard right now.
Sure. I think you
So-
just have to you have to completely change your door so it opens inward. It's the only way.
It opens inward. Yeah.
You know?
Change my hinges.
Yeah, you got to flip your house.
Yeah. It's my fault. It's my fault.
Yeah.
I should be.
It's an architecture problem.
It's true.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. How could I have been so selfish?
It's okay, it's just it's part of the process.
Man, that's why I came on the podcast today is to all that just to lead up to the solution.
I mean,
And
that's
just
what I'm
ease
here
the
for.
tension in my life.
Yeah, I don't know if you knew this, but the delivery workers actually sent a long email to me saying, Eric Schwartz, he's the next target. You got to get him
He's
to
the only one.
open the inward door.
He's the only one in his complex who hasn't adapted to the inward door.
Yeah, it's a big adjustment. We all take it at our own pace.
That's
But
true.
speaking of, I mean, I know we're kind of we're over an hour mark, so I just want to,
It's
see
'cause-
if you have any sort of final positivity remarks. I always ask.
I'm just like talking to you makes me excited. You know what I mean? I don't know.
That's great.
I think right now what I really look forward to is talking shop with my peers. it really, it just makes you feel like things are normal, right?
Sure.
I see the things you're going through. You might see something that I'm going through and you go, oh, okay. And you recognize it in yourself. So I just appreciate just even talking to you, even if it weren't recorded.
Right,
I just appreciate.
This is all for business.
Yeah.
I would never talk to you otherwise.
No, but like, hey,
But
anytime.
Of course. Yeah, no, I mean, this is a huge part of why I do the podcast, of course, is like to be able to kind of, talk to people for an extended amount of time, but also people like yourself where it's like, ooh, would he? Hopefully, so I really appreciate you taking the time.
I mean, I learn a lot from listening to you, and even any question you ask me, and I'm saying things that I'm like, oh yeah, I got to keep that in mind.
Yeah, hopefully.
So
it helps in that way. It's like
when somebody asks you, and maybe you're not actually practicing it, that makes you more conscious of it. So
totally, yeah,
thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's like giving advice to friends is sometimes oh yeah, I got to remember to take that advice. Like you got this, you're awesome, and it's like, oh yeah, should I be thinking that too?
Yeah, like I should be taking this medicine that I'm dispensing.
Right, that's the dream.
Yeah,
but yeah,
I do most of it. Most of it I do.
Cool.
Like I ran today. I
believe it. I am not doubting
today.
that you ran.
Yeah.
And the cold showers, gotta now that you put it out there, you gotta keep up with that because it's out there in the world, so you can't double back.
Yep.
But yeah, and then I guess also anything you want to plug in these times, obviously post the Instagram and all those things. But
sure.
Yeah.
I think what I'm working on right now is that podcast, the musical, is what it's called.
Cool.
And then watch my buddy Joe Coy's Netflix special called In His Elements. I helped out.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're in a shot in the background. I mean, maybe more. You never know.
Yeah, and in the credits, I'm in the credits.
That's important.
I think I'm either consulting producer or associate producer.
That's exciting. Spoilers.
I have a producer credit, which
that's awesome.
Spoiler alert, guys, in the credits.
For the credits.
I know you look forward to the credits.
But that's awesome. Congrats. That's very exciting. It'll be more quarantine content to catch up on. Like I'm running out, Hey everyone, thanks for listening to that episode with Eric Schwartz. Be sure to check out his comedy and videos at ericschwartzlive.com or go on Instagram, that's where he's at too. I really enjoyed talking with him and I hope you enjoyed listening. Also, thanks for tolerating my fun Fire Flames jacket that I'm wearing right now. I'm sure you could hear it jiggling in the background in the audio. So, we all got to enjoy it both visually and orally. How do we say that word? It's a weird one because it's not orally. That's mouth. Orally, that's ears. Definitely Eric had the best celebration habit, which is going on a run, which is hilarious. I wish I wanted to go on a run, but I obviously like to just make purchases like buying this fire jacket, but I recommend buying a fire jacket. I mean, obviously go on a run if that's your thing, in which case, proud of you. But I think, I don't know, being in lockdown, being down in lockdown, which happens, you know what I mean? And I just came up with that right now. Being down in lockdown, sometimes I feel like, how can I emerge from this lockdown and feel transformed? And I think nothing is better than just buying yourself a jacket with flames on it, and then you can emerge being like, oh, you didn't know? I'm this person now. I wear flames on my jacket. So anyway, that's just another tip to throw at you. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and thank you for listening.